are live.
Hey guys, welcome to the live show of Unblemished by Sara Ella with Sara Ella herself. Yay! We also have I'm the host this one, and the co-host is Angela. So go ahead, Angela, and introduce yourself, and then we'll get to Sara.
Oh, just a minute. Okay, hold on. I had to mute a video. Hi guys, I'm Angela from Coffee&Chapters. Welcome to my channel. Make yourselves at home.
Awesome. Okay, is Sara there? She looks frozen to me.
Oh no.
Do we have a frozen Sara? Frozen, come back! Okay, well, while we're waiting for Sara to come back up, I'll just give an introduction of Sara and her debut novel, which is Unblemished, which I'm so excited about. This was our pick for the month, and we can't be happier. Like, this book was so cool. But we'll give our thoughts in a minute. You can find it, the publisher is Thomas Nelson, and you can find Sara's book pretty much everywhere. I guess Angela found it at Chapters, or that's actually, you found another one at Chapters quickly.
Yeah, I did. I found our November pick, actually.
Awesome, yeah. And so
but my Chapters actually doesn't sell Unblemished. Is not available in our Chapters stores, but it is available on Chapters online.
Okay.
And we've lost Sara Ella. Nope, she's coming back.
Yay. You can also learn about how her publication went in the Behind the Pages, and so we're so happy to have her. Sara, why don't you give us a hello and a little synopsis of your book?
Hey guys, I'm Sara Ella, and I'm so glad to be here with Melanie and Angela. And Unblemished is my debut YA fantasy novel from Thomas Nelson HarperCollins. It is about a girl named Eliana who is from New York City, and she has what she considers a very ugly birthmark type of blemish on the right side of her face, and she's always hated it very much. And she just thinks it's the worst thing in the world, but after her mother dies, she finds out that it is maybe not the most worst thing in the whole world, and she discovers that there is a whole, another whole world that she had no idea existed, and she gets whisked off to that world and kind of discovers that the thing that she always considered a curse is actually something that could become her greatest strength.
All right, Angela, go ahead and give your thoughts, your overall thoughts on the book.
Well, I was following Sara Ella probably from when she and I both kind of started YouTube around the same time. So when you started your Behind the Pages and kind of got to see how this book was getting started and your dream behind the book and everything, I got super excited. And then when you announced like the publication and the cover reveal, it was all so exciting. And then when you sent me this beautiful arc, it became real. And so I was just pumped. But at the same time, I wanted to keep, as my excitement for this book, I wanted it to be not just for the fact that your book was being published. So I went in there, kind of kept myself unhyped about the book because I wanted to give the book a fair shot of itself. And I was taken away with it. It was overall just a really great story. I really like worlds where you go to a different fantasy world, but there's an acknowledgement that our world exists. And there's like a couple mini series that I like that's like that, like Tin Man and Alice from the Sci-Fi Channel were really like that, where you had the acknowledgement that there was another world there, but you didn't want everybody knowing about that world. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect of this book, and that really spoke to me, and the characters and everything. I love side characters, and I love when side characters have a purpose for being in the book instead of just being in there for side characters. So yeah, overall, I loved it. Had a great theme, a great storyline, and again, it really had the adventure type of stuff that I love.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give my quick overview as well, and I absolutely loved it. It was so cool. Now, you have to understand where I'm coming from a little bit on this. I don't usually read a lot of fantasy. So for me, I was just like, all right, okay, let's go into this. And I was actually blown away because of how closely related it was to our world. Like, it was very easy to say, oh, I totally get this. It's not super hard to picture in your mind or visualize where you are, and it was super good. So overall thoughts, awesome. I was pretty shocked that I really enjoyed it as much as I did because of fantasy alone, and I was pretty happy with it. I think there's so much in here that we need to talk about more than just our overview thoughts, though. So let's go into our favorite quotes.
Well, sorry. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I actually haven't had a chance to go through it and get it because I was just so busy. So I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So go ahead and give me yours. And then Sarah, if you have a favorite quote from the book itself that you thought of, that would be cool if you added it in.
Okay.
Well, I was perusing the book before the show started because I read without marking or tabbing or anything. So I kind of just read and went with it. And I realized I don't think I have a favorite quote, and it's really difficult for any books for me to pick out just one thing a character says. But there was a moment where, darn, I forget the character's name. Melanie's so much better at remembering characters than I am.
Okay, who are you talking about? Is it Kai? Is it Joshua?
No, it's actually, again, one of the side characters, Robin.
Oh, Robin. Yes,
I loved Robin. I absolutely adored her, and I hated what happened to her, Sarah. I absolutely loved her, and I loved the way she was kind of filling Elle in on everything, and just the way she was telling about the void and the verity, how that was being described and talked about was really cool, and that's what stood out to me when I was reading it. So, yeah, the description of the void and the verity.
Sarah, do you have a favorite quote?
I do, and I just want to comment on that and say I'm really glad to hear that because that was one of the most difficult scenes to write because I tend to complicate things and explain way too much, and so the fact that that came across to you, Angela, makes me super happy. I think one of my favorite quotes, and I don't actually have my book with me, so I'm probably not going to quote it exactly right, but this is kind of a spoiler alert.
Yes, spoiler alert.
I'll try to be vague for those who haven't read it yet, but there's a scene where they're in Witch Green Village, and this guy character is saving Eliana, and he says to the bad guy something like, if you ever touch her again, you'll wish this blade was made of steel. And I love that line so there was,
to be honest, like there were so many good places that I wanted. I actually, Sarah, you'll hate me, I doggy tagged so much. Like, look at this poor book of yours.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I know, because there's so much in there that I wanted to say and talk about. And that actually, it was so overwhelming when I was going through it. I'm like, I only have an hour. I can't do this. And so I actually couldn't find anything because there was a lot of good stuff. And
there's a lot of good one-liners for sure.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's so much hard work. Okay, so let's go into characters. This is going to take us a while because there are so many good characters and side characters on top of this.
And you guys in the comments, if you have comments and questions that you want to ask Sarah about each of these topics that we're going to go through, start throwing the comments in the chat. I'll start watching and throw some in as well.
Okay, let's start with Eliana. What are your thoughts, Angela?
I like that she... Now, okay, so when people say strong female characters nowadays, it starts to bother me because it sounds so much like a trend and not a strongly written female character. And so when I say strong female character, I like a character with strong integrity, strong character, but who isn't afraid of her flaws and accepts help when she needs it and grows from her flaws. And so when I say a strong female character, that's what I mean. And Eliana, to me, was a strong female character. I liked how her head voice sometimes echoed what I was even thinking while she was going through that scene, or what I would have thought about. And I really enjoyed that about her. She seems so down to earth, and I don't know, just confused in that world, but at the same time, really realistic reactions to the stuff that was going on in that world. Like when there was one character that turns into a merman, and she's just kind of like gawking at him. Like
Kuna. Was it Kuna, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when she's just gawking at him, like that just happened, I can picture her reaction, and I relate to that. It's like, yeah, that probably would have been my reaction too. It was like, right?
So Sarah, what was your thoughts like going into creating Eliana as the main character, and like especially with her blemish and things like that, just building her? Is she a lot like you? Because when I was reading this, a lot of it was like, whoa, I see Sarah doing something like that, or you know what I mean? Like, so I guess for the viewers and readers, like what can they expect with this character that you intended for, and like how did you create the blemish, and why did you want to create that?
Well, I wanted a teenage girl that people could, or that I could personally relate to, and I struggled with, and still struggle with, so much insecurity sometimes, and I know that's not everybody, but I feel like that's a big chunk of teenage girls and women in general struggle with insecurities about themselves, whether it be internally or externally, and a lot of these, sorry, I'm at Barnes & Noble. A lot of these female characters that I read about in these fantasy worlds today, they're excellent, but I just can't relate to somebody who is an awesome sword fighter, or who, you know, shoots bows and arrows and they know how to hunt. I just can't relate to that, and I wanted a character who, you know, basically struggled with what I struggled with. So when she's talking about like wishing she could wear a paper bag over her head, that was me. That was me in high school. I had really bad acne. And so that kind of is where that whole idea of her having issues with her skin stemmed from. And it just kind of went from there.
I really love that aspect of it, actually. And I really enjoyed like your thoughts of Eliana and how at times her mother's words came to her. And it was interesting like how you tied this into her calling as a scribe. But what I loved most was how sometimes she didn't listen to that voice, and it showed like the faultiness in her character, which you could also relate to. So no, like just the fact that she had a blemish, which all women, like you said, can totally relate to, because we're always measuring ourselves up to what we think we should be like in society. And so it's kind of cool how, you know, not only was she had this blemish that you could relate to, but also her character, she had this character flaw that sometimes she didn't do what she should have done, you know? It was really good.
You. I'm glad to hear that was relatable, because I noticed that some people have said she seemed whiny, and I totally understand that, because I do think she's a little bit whiny at the beginning because of her insecurity, and that was something I could personally relate to, and maybe not everybody can, but I kind of relate to that kind of self-doubt, self-insecurity.
Go ahead, Angela.
I could see where people get the whiny part from, but at the same time, thinking back, like, again, like high school Angela, like I don't even want to bring up all of this. But I was just, oh man, I had so many insecurities being in high school, and just thinking about high school Angela, I think about how whiny I was about all of my insecurities, and just thinking, God, can't you just make them go away and make me look like that girl over there? Like, you know, so like I can get where people would get the whiny, but it's relatable and it's real.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too.
Let's move into Joshua and Kai, because there's lots to talk about here. Okay.
The teams started up again.
What's that?
Teams have started up again.
Yay!
Awesome. Yeah. Well, okay, let's talk about character arcs in a sense, because Joshua. Joshua was like, it's Joshua, right, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay,
Joshua.
I keep mixing it up with Jonathan for whatever reason. But anyways, it's Joshua. No, I love the names. They're beautiful, actually. And so Joshua, I like, seriously, he seemed pretty steady throughout the whole book. But there are issues like later on. But Kai, I seriously thought he was a certain way, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, that is such an amazing character arc. I am floored here. What did you do to like create that? How did you come up with that idea? Was it something that just kind of took place?
Yes. Kai is such an interesting, I love to talk about Kai so much because he it took me by surprise, to be honest, because spoiler alert, when I first started writing this book, Kai was just a bad guy. That's all he was. He wasn't even going to be that big of a character. It was always just going to be Joshua. And Kai became, he kind of kept like pushing himself in there. And I was like, no, you stay in your corner. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to be. And you can go sit in your corner now. And he's just like, as we know, if you've read it, Kai does not listen to anybody. And he would not listen to me. I sound like a crazy person, but this is how writers think. And he just kept kind of finding his way in. He has my favorite lines. I love his banter. I love his attitude. And he became something so much more than I ever expected him to be. So as I wrote, he just kind of grew. As I grew as a writer, Kai grew as a character, and he just kept weaseling his way in there to become now. He's a main character now. So
I loved how you ended with both of them.
Thank you.
What did you think, Angela?
I never wanted to do this, but I'm Team Kai. Like, I hate the team thing, but like, I can see how it happens again. And Joshua, I liked the way he was written, and I liked what he was there for Elle, but at the same time, what he was there for Elle also annoyed me in a way of giving her those false hopes and those false ideas. And
I think he wanted it in a sense, you know? It's like a struggle for him. It's cool.
But at the same time, like, when guys do that, like, to girls in real life, it's just like that thing that just bugs me, and I hate that about guys. But like, and then when he realized he could have her, that's when he allowed them to be real and to show her that. And also when that competition kind of came in, that's when he kind of got competitive. And so I guess that part of his character that's why I kind of went more over to Kai. Plus Kai had that very strong story build up, and that you started off like not knowing what to do with this character. Like with Joshua, I had this in my head before the show, but like I started off being okay with him, and then slowly being way more annoyed with him. And then with Kai, as soon as he came into the picture, I was like, okay, Sara Ella really likes well-written love triangles. She has said this on her channel. So I have a feeling I've just entered into a well-done love triangle, which I am excited about when they're well done. Like, not when the girl's like, oh, I don't know which boy to choose. They're both after me. Whereas, like, Elle was like, okay, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. I still can't understand what's happening with this guy. But then her heart in the end kind of leads her to what happened. So that's a well-written love triangle for me. So that's why I ended up going more for Kai. Plus, like Sara Ella said, he had the best lines. They had the best banter. I loved it when he kept calling her princess. Like, throws her over his shoulders. Like, fine, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, no more of this.
Well, that was hilarious, that scene, actually, where she goes, I don't know how you wrote this. You must have been laughing when you wrote this, Sarah, when she's like, you know, trying to stand up really strong, and all of a sudden he just comes and like picks her up.
Yeah.
How did you write that?
Well, it was originally Joshua in that was rescuing her in that scene. And as the story developed, and as my editor kind of helped me figure out how to fix the plot, it just didn't fit for Joshua to be there at that point in time. And so it's like, well, we'll change this up. And as I kind of put Kai in there instead, it was like, this fits him so much better. Like, he's so much more natural in this scene. And I remember very specifically in my edits this last year, writing that scene where they're having that kind of banter, and he's like kind of making fun of her. And yeah, I do. And thank you, Angela. I'm really glad to hear that you say it was a well-written love triangle, because that makes me super happy, because like you said, I love well-written love triangles. So.
Yeah. And this one really was. It was well written.
Thank you.
I mean, the cool thing is that you didn't have such a confusion of like and flippant kind of love for one for the other, or just quickly going back and forth. It was like she had her heart set on Joshua, and he broke her heart. And then she's like, she didn't really want to go with Kai, and her heart, like Angela said, kind of led her there. And I love that moment where she realizes that because of that, that's another thing I want to talk about is the kiss. Like, how did you come up with such a, I mean, it's quite like, it's almost power. Like, you make just the union of somebody's love very powerful, which it should be, actually. And I think that was really cool how you did that. Tell me what you thought of, like, and how you came about with that.
Well, as we developed the plot, there are so many YA books out there, and this is not me author bashing or anything, just my personal preference is that I would not prefer my girls to, when they're teenagers, to be reading a book that's supposedly written for their age, in which the main characters are sleeping together within the first few pages of the book. I just don't feel like that should be what's being portrayed. And so I wanted to really center around how powerful a kiss is, and that a kiss in and of itself is kind of giving yourself to another person, and that kisses are sacred, they're a very special thing. And so I really wanted to focus on that and kind of keep it clean and really have that impact about the kiss. And that's kind of, just if you go back to read the fairy tales and things, a kiss is always the thing that is, what wakes Sleeping Beauty, or what changes, the beast into a prince, or, whatever. It's that kiss, it's that I love you, it's that connection. That very small thing is the most powerful thing of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, what are your thoughts? You want to chime in with anything?
Well, there was a comment that Olivia's book Adventures says, "Preach it, Sarah."
Yeah.
Which I totally agree with that comment of a kiss isn't just something to be thrown around. And a lot of what's behind my channel and why I review specifically YA is actually thinking back to what I had when I was a young adult. And there was a lot of stuff even in books for my age that had a lot of stuff in it that my young mind at the time couldn't really process properly and maturely. And I'm even just looking at what's in today's YA, and it does kind of surprise me, like when I read a book and I think about, as a youth leader at my church, to think about some of the girls and what, if I was their parent, or just thinking as a youth leader what I want to impress upon them. Just thinking about what the type of stuff that they would read and what they should gain from those characters who are, in a way, role models for them. Anything you read or watch is a role model. And so when I'm reading a book, and I'm so stickler about content, and especially about romance content and sexual content, that, I'm like, you can look at it and say it's like I'm too picky about it, but at the same time, it's like I think about a specific girl in my youth group, or like a couple of girls in my youth group, and say, okay, would this be good for so-and-so to read? And if my answer is no, then I don't even read them. And so when I think about Unblemished and the power of a kiss, like even just sealing the promise by kissing someone's palm, sealing that promise of a kiss, like anything like that was very sacred and powerful, and really held people to do something awful if people manipulated it. And that's, when I think about Unblemished, that would be a book I would recommend to some of the girls in my youth group, because it's like, think about the power of a kiss.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you want to, is there any more questions or comments, or do you want to go into some of the side characters? I guess we'll let Sarah pick which one she wants to go into first. There's like Jason and Mackay, and what do you think, Angela?
I think we're good for comments. Sarah said hello to some people. And Nadine's here. That's exciting. Hi, Nadine.
Cool. I don't know where you guys can say hello to anybody.
Oh, if you go to my video link, there's a chat, and you can watch the chat on the side.
Oh, I'll have to go and check that out soon. That's so cool. So Sarah, who do you want to go with for our side characters? There's
I'd love to talk about Mackay, if you guys are okay with that.
Yes, we are.
I loved him.
Yeah, he's such a man, like, you know, just such a he's a real guardian.
Yes, he is.
Angela, go ahead.
Mackay, like, as soon as he stepped on scene, I was like, he's gonna be cool. Like, even just like the shadow, it's like either he's gonna be cool bad or he's gonna be cool good. So I'm interested. And then the more we got to know him, I was like, okay, no, he's cool. Like,
he is.
You know, if like the two male protagonists are a little young for me, I could go for Mackay if he was, you know, close to my age. Like, just, I was like, yeah, like I liked him, and I liked his dedication to not only Elle's mom but to Elle as well in a way. And I loved his dedication, and he had some good one-liners too, even though they were just like, he didn't have a lot to say, but when he did say something, it was like, yes.
Okay, and then Mackay is amazing, and I thought he was really cool because you come in here, he came in like, you know, all bossy like, and you're not sure like, is this is he a good guy or is he a bad guy or what is he? And then you learn how valuable he is to the main characters. And not only that, like as the family story kind of unfolds, you also learn so much more about him. And then obviously with Eliana's mother. And I was shocked with, let's kind of jump into her. Her real name is Elizabeth, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. And she's really amazing. And just her dedication and love for Eliana, like, is just so much like a mother, you know? And, but I was like really shocked at the beginning of the book because I literally thought she died. So how did you write that? Like, and what kind of brought you to the point of writing that? And just give us a little background story about Eliana's mom and Mackay.
Okay, so Mackay is actually the first character that I ever wrote. He's the first character that I came up with and named. Originally, he was Eliana's big brother. And it just kind of, it evolved. And with Elizabeth, that first scene, which is pretty, it's definitely better written than it was when I first wrote it, but it's pretty much the same. It was always going to be a funeral scene, and I wrote that right after my mom died in 2012, because that was when I really was like, had the push to write a book. I was like, I'm going to do this. I've said forever I'm going to do this. My mom said do it, and so I'm going to do it. And so my grief over her passing was very fresh when I wrote that. And they tell you, write what you know, write your emotions onto the page. And that was the emotion I felt at the time. And so that's what I wrote. And so that's kind of where that first scene kind of stems from.
And you can actually feel that in when you're reading it, you can feel that. And because we knew a bit about you, Sarah, and stuff, we kind of knew that. And so when we're going to, like, it actually broke my heart.
I cried.
I did.
Oh. That makes me happy in a weird way.
Yeah, well, because we can feel what you went through, and you really did portray that in your writing excellently. So yeah, thanks very much for sharing that. It's people who go through that or feel those emotions and go, and like when she hid herself in the room, like that is so me. When something bad happens, like, I just go hide in the bathroom and you lock the door and, you know, I let it all out. And that's something that's very touching and moving, and that really is a legacy for your mom, you know, and so it's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth is very much my mom. Her favorite tea, just everything about her is just very, when my sister read the book, she was like, this character is Mom. I said, yeah, I know. So she's very much inspired by my mom.
We could tell.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Even not knowing her, we could probably pick up on that.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's get into maybe some of the bad guys like Quinn and Jason. Go ahead, Angela.
Like, for the bad guy, like, there's always gonna be like the brutal bad guy who's violent, or the manipulative, mind-bending bad guy who plays with your mind and who likes drama and who likes everything played out in front of them. And that's who Jason was. He was the mind playing with bad guy, and I like that. I think he could have been. I would have liked to see a bit more of a darker side to him, as bad as that sounds. Like, I would have wanted to see, like, to me, I wasn't as scared or intimidated by him as I was, what's his name, Heyman?
Yes.
Hammond?
Heyman,
Yeah.
yep.
Heyman. I was more scared and intimidated by Heyman than I was Jason. So, like, he was like, he's still pretty, I like the mind-bending bad guys, so I liked Jason in that way. And I'm trying to think of who he reminded me of. Like, he almost was a bit like, oh, Sarah, yes, okay, so Mr. Gold, Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time, plays that, like, those mind games on people, like, you know, oh, sure, I'll give you this, but they really end up paying for it in the end. And I think Jason kind of reminded me a bit of Mr. Gold, who is a really well-written and really done villain as well. So I really like that I could see that sinister of a villain or sinister of a character. I don't know. I haven't kept watching the show, so I don't know how bad Mr. Gold is still. But like, I like the sinisterness of those characters, and so I liked that in Jason. But I found Heyman more intimidating.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Heyman seemed like the more rougher around the edges, kind of, I'll kill you without a heartbeat kind of, or a thought, you know, kind of guy. But Jason, I actually appreciated, like, that subtle inner turmoil that he was kind of going through that kind of came out more in the end. And, you know, he was looking for everybody for a reason, and you knew he was up to no good, but he kind of is so deceptive. I would say he was deceptive. And then, like, when it came out with the Void and the Verity, which we'll go into more in the world building aspects, but I was really actually shocked at, like, how he was able to keep the void within himself and yet still function and not be soulless. So, like, I was kind of, like, shocked at his subtle inner turmoil that you see him going through, and yet he had this, like, because there was so much evil inside of him, yet he played a deceptive fraud as keeping it cool and just, you know. So I think his character was very interesting and not so much, like, scary or whatever, but you knew he had power to do something damaging, you know. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with his character, and what aspects of him was hard to write?
Well, with Jason, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Winter's Tale, but Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe basically plays the devil in that movie, or the bad guy. And so Russell Crowe is a bad guy with that, like, deep voice and just very Russell Crowe. Kind of is like, Russell Crowe is my bad guy, you know. And it kind of went from there. Just very like calm, not yelling at people. I almost find that scarier when a bad guy's like yelling and he's losing it. I'm like, okay, dude. But when, you know, a bad guy is just very, like, calm and sinister, it's like, what's this guy gonna do? I don't know what's he gonna do. And so that kind of is the kind of bad guy I wanted to create. And with Jason, I feel like the reason that he is kind of able to keep that kind of cool and that facade is because we all have, and I explore this in the second book, because we all have a little bit of light and darkness in us. But with Jason, the light is so far removed from his character that the darkness doesn't affect him in that kind of warring kind of way that it would affect somebody else, that it would affect one of us. And we kind of see that like in Once Upon a Time, where the characters are dealing with their light and dark sides, but it doesn't maybe bother like somebody like Rumpelstiltskin as much, because he's so used to that darkness. He's so used to being the bad guy. He's so used to always making the wrong choices that when he does something dark, or when he has that darkness, it's like not a second thought to do it to get what he wants. Whereas for somebody who has more good in them, they kind of struggle with that, and that darkness affects them a lot more. And that's kind of where it was going with that.
Yeah. And what were you gonna say, Angela?
No, I was just like, that's interesting when you hear more like from like the background part of it, from like the author's perspective, then you like you see the character almost like, I see it now.
Yeah, let's go into Quinn, because she's another antagonist, and which I really had no idea. Now I have to tell you guys, I had a friend that was just like Quinn going into high school. Like, I'm not kidding. She was just like Quinn. And it was really crazy to read this story. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was my friend. And all of a sudden, she changes in the end of this book. But interestingly enough, in my situation, she actually became a Christian and was one of the first persons to shake my hand. She was literally my friend, but she was really an enemy, and she was the first person to shake my hand at church and welcome me to church when I first went a long time ago. So it was interesting how, people can change. Unfortunately, in this situation, Ebony is not what we think she is, or sorry, Quinn is not what we think she is. She's Ebony.
When that part happened, like, I thought Quinn was gone for good. I'm like, oh, good, that brat's gone. Like, she annoyed me. She was just like, what a jerk. Her mom just died. And you're like, I heart you always. And I'm like, whatevs. And then at the end, when she walks in, I was like, wait, what? Like, that was like a little bit of a plot twist I never, ever imagined coming. So when she walked in, I was like, bravo.
How did you come up with that?
I had friends like Quinn in high school, and it just, for me, a lot of stuff like that just isn't planned. I see kind of like the ending and where I'm going with like the romantic climax of things, but stuff like that with chapter endings, like when I get to a chapter ending, I try to find the most shocking or unexpected thing to happen, so that people will turn the next page. And also, it can't just be a shocker. It has to fit with the story. And so it just, when that happened, it was like, oh, well, this fits. Let's just do this. And that just kind of worked out for because I wanted to keep Quinn in there as not just some random character at the beginning of the story. I wanted to tie it into kind of the background and Eliana's story and continue her on for the next book. And so that's where that came from.
Well, it was well done.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the side characters, is that they weren't just thrown in there. And just there's some books, like I think some of the most disappointing books for me is when side characters are just there and then you lose them and it's like,
right,
what happened to you? But I think every one of the side characters, now at first there was a lot of people keeping track with, like there's a lot of people to keep apart and stuff like that. But once you had who's who and who's everyone belonged to, there was a lot of side characters that had a purpose, had a reason, had heart, had character, instead of just being written in there for fillers. And Quinn was one of those, like, at first I was like, okay, good, she's gone. I don't have to deal with her anymore. But when she came back, I was really excited that she did come back, because then she had more of a purpose, and it was such a good, like that, Sarah, you said that shocker, that was such a shocker. And then it was like, oh my gosh, no way.
And then there's also Isabeau. Isabeau? How do you say it? Isabeau. She's also an antagonist, and I'm quite interested to see how that turns out in the next book. So yeah, I'm not gonna ask any questions about that one. But I thought that was very interesting. So let's.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So now, do you want Angela to go into more of the world building to save on time, or do you want to say a little bit more about some of the side characters? Because there's quite a few other ones. Or do you want to just say, hey, what's your favorite side character, or what?
Yeah. Like, what's your favorite side character?
My favorite side character is probably Mackay, just because he was the first character that I ever made up, and his name was the first name. As everybody's names changed throughout the writing process except for Mackay's name.
Wow, that's really
So,
cool.
I love him.
I love all your names, actually. I do. Most stories and fantasies or just different stories, you kind of you're lost in the names. Sometimes I don't even know how to pronounce half them. Like, they're bad.
If the book has a pronunciation guide at the end, I'm just like, is it even worth it? When I find them helpful, but at the same time, it's like, that's a lot of effort for reading.
Well, it's kind of neat. I think it was, this book actually reminds me somewhat of Lisa Ton, I think it's T. Berggren, her dystopian series, and she has on the back a little guide to how you pronounce names, but she also has the meanings of them, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm so glad that they were normal-ish kind of words. There's some that are really different, but easy to understand.
Good.
I loved so many of the side characters. It was all I'm flipping through right now, trying to remember everybody and thinking of everybody. There's almost some side characters I liked more than some of the main characters, but I definitely liked now I can't remember Stormy. I loved Stormy, and my heart broke for Stormy for that one part. So I loved Stormy, and I loved her husband. Who was that again?
What was his name?
Kuna. Yeah, Kuna and Stormy. I really liked them, and I liked their relationship. And Robin was so adorable. I was so endeared by her and her character and just the integrity she had. And then what happened to her, I was just like, of course. As soon as you're like, oh, I love this character, and then it's like, really?
There's always a sacrifice.
Yeah, I was so sad when I mean, it's gonna sound wrong. I liked the way she went, but I was still really sad to see her go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Stormy, Robin, and Kuna.
I think
Mackay, but
yeah, I know all of them actually, but but I think actually mine, and I know that we don't know. I'm not 100% convinced about something, but Queen Ember is my favorite character, and she's just I just really like her. Just the way, we don't know a lot about her yet, but what we do know about her, I was endeared with her character. Very similar to Eliana or Elizabeth. So yeah, I really, really liked Queen Ember, even though I'm not 100% convinced what happened or didn't happen, or we'll see what happens in the next book. Do you want to move on to world building?
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Any questions there, Angela?
No, there's 3 viewers, and our chat's pretty quiet. I don't know where everybody went. Somebody said they would come back and watch later, so. Okay,
cool. So they're probably heading off to bed or doing their own things, but who knows what time it is. Here it's 7, so. Let's get into world building. I'll get Sarah to give us a brief description in her words, some of the aspects of the story that might be confusing for readers, and the verity and the void, and the different callings, because there's quite a bit of different ones, and trying to get a grasp on all of them by the end of the book. I sort of got it, but there's some other ones that kind of came up. I think we'll see more of them, I'm hoping, in the next book, but let us know what you think and give us a little description about them, as well as the soulless and guardians.
Okay, so with the callings, I really just kind of wanted to go on the idea that we're all given different gifts, and we all have different special talents that we are given, and things that we're good at, and we're not always good at the same things. And so that's kind of where the callings came from. And I wanted 7 callings because I feel like this number 7 is a very significant number in the Bible, and so I wanted to use that number. And so with the callings, I just kind of I came up with the names. Like, I was trying to find good synonyms for the names. And so you've got the scribes, who are talented in kind of professor-like. They write, or they're artists, something to do with kind of writing or thinking or words or drawing. And then you have the amulets, who create facades and who kind of protect people in kind of that way. So they create kind of an illusion to kind of protect something, whether it's themselves or a place or other people. And then you have the shields, who make very good guardians because they are good for combat, and they have either defensive or offensive powers, and each one of the shield powers are different. I didn't want every single calling and every person with a calling to have the exact same power, because even if I'm a writer and you're a writer, that doesn't mean that we have the exact same talent. So I wanted to make sure that the callings, they weren't all exactly the same. If you're a shield, you all do the same thing. I didn't want it to be like that. And then the masks are able to transform into some other form. So you've got Kuna, who's a merman. You have Robin, who's a tiger. Ren, who is a griffin. So we've got kind of the regular animals that we know, like a tiger. And then, of course, of some of the mythological creatures, like a griffin or a mermaid. Let's see. Then you have the physics.
Oh, yes.
The physics, who, they heal, and you have traditional physics, like doctors who use medicines, like Wade. And then you have physics who have a little bit more healing powers with, their hands, like Nathaniel, like he can touch and heal, and I just love that. And let's see. What am I missing? Oh, magnets, like Stormy, who can control, like, the different elements. And so Stormy can control water, and that kind of comes into play. And did I name 7 yet?
Okay, so we got shield, mask, magnets, physics,
scrib.
Oh, scrib, and the one that's amulet, and then mirror.
Mirror. Okay, so with mirrors, and mirrors are very rare. And spoiler alert, Eliana is a mirror, and mirrors can only be created by somebody who has been given a kiss of infinity by somebody who holds the verity. And there can only be 1 mirror at a time. And all of the callings, everybody. Oh, Evers! I forgot to mention Evers.
Oh, yes.
Evers. Their powers in their blood. That's all I'm going to say about that. But mirrors have all aspects of the calling, the different callings, and then they have their own kind of abilities. And so that's where Eliana's love for music and her song comes into play with that. And that's not something that was developed until very, very much later on in the plot process, because when I originally turned this manuscript into Thomas Nelson, Eliana loved music, but that didn't really have anything to do with her ability. And so as we kind of tied things together and tightened the plot a little bit, that kind of came into play, and thus the mirror calling was created.
I love the mirror calling.
Thank you.
That was pretty cool. I like how subtly, too, the music thing kind of went. Like, she had flashbacks with her and Joshua, and how she met Joshua, and then just things she liked to do and you just almost thought it was like just a personality thing, that she really liked music, and then at the end it was like, oh, that's awesome, but beautiful how that wrapped in there. And so I thought that was so cool how that was done, because at first it just seemed so like, oh, personality trait, she really likes music, but it's like a good memory tie-in for her, but then it became something more.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that came across.
Yeah, and then what about the verity and the void? How would you describe them in your own words, Sarah?
The verity is light, the void is darkness. My editor felt that we needed something much more epic in there, just to keep the storyline going through 3 books. And so again, the verity and the void were kind of added in late into the process last year when I was going through edits after I had turned it in, and I really wanted something that covered all 3 novels, because the bad guy is defeated in the first book, it doesn't mean that the darkness or the evil is necessarily defeated. And so with that, the void is darkness and the verity is light. And as we go through the series, we're going to learn a little bit more about their origins and where they came from, and kind of how they came to be.
Cool. And just a side note, if anybody wants to see how the behind the scenes were, the past the pages segments of Sarah's channel, they're awesome to watch. Very, very informative and kind of cool to see the process of what it took to put this together, which is a lot of work. So yeah, definitely check them out and subscribe to her channel. Also, the Guardians and the Soulless, how did they come about, and what are their roles in your words?
Well, the Guardians, they are just kind of the protectors, and they've been there from the beginning of my writing process. I needed some good, strong protectors, kind of the good guys who they are protecting, and they are going to serve the verity and the crown. They have a tattoo that says "to the crown until death," and whoever has the crown has the verity. So that's really, they're serving the verity. And then, and they do it not because they have to, but because they want to, because they're fighting for what's good. And then you have the soulless, who there are two types of soulless. There are the soulless that choose to be soulless, who want to serve the void, and they kind of chose that life. And then the soulless who kind of have the void forced upon them. And we see that a little bit with Kai. Who's having to kind of fight back that darkness so he doesn't become soulless. And then we have, Tiernan, who's talked about a little bit, and how he kind of chose that darkness and continued to let it overcome him until there was nothing of his soul left. And once the void finally takes over and completely takes over, then you become soulless, because there's no soul left, there's no light left, there's only darkness.
That's a really cool aspect of the story. Angela, what do you think of all those?
I thought, like, the world building, like I mentioned before, I love a world where you go into another world, but you still have acknowledgement of your world in that world. So very much like Once Upon a Time, like the Alice, like the other miniseries I mentioned, like those shows are my thing. And when a book is written that way, it's like, that's what I love. And I really liked the void and the verity. And like I said, that was one of my favorite parts of it being described, because you really saw a lot of undertones of stuff that had a lot of faith elements as well. And so I really picked up on a lot of those, and I really enjoyed that. But just so many little things, like there was a couple moments where a lot of stuff was kind of overwhelming and I was trying to figure things out. But then, like I said, once you do get past those kind of overwhelming moments of who's who, what's happening, and how is all this connected, it really makes a lot of sense and really brings a lot of stuff together. But then what I want to mention about writing style and voice is when you watch like Sara Ella's channel and you're behind the pages and stuff, or past the pages and stuff, you really get to know you as a writer. And so when I'm reading this book and thinking about you as a YouTuber and the writer that I saw, and I mentioned this in my review, you really pick on things that she loved as a reader, and you pick on that in the book. And then you also pick on a few other things, like what section was it? I had to laugh out loud at this section. And I loved it. It was Act 3, and it's called Something There. And my mind instantly started playing Something There from Beauty and the Beast.
Yep, there you go.
And then I flipped to the next page, and the chapter was Unsure. And then the next chapter was like, I didn't see it. And then it's like when we touched, I'm like, oh my gosh, she had Beauty and Beast elements in here. And I'm sure there's a lot of other musical, Casey mentioned there's some actual musicals and like Wicked and stuff, kind of influences that I might have picked up on because I haven't seen Wicked yet. But when I'm picking up on those elements, like I think I even tweeted there, I was like, I caught that, I know it's there. And it's really exciting to read this reader's voice, figure out this world, but then know you as a reader and not just as a writer. And you really catered to readers and what readers would love. Like I said, you really wrote a well-written love triangle that I wasn't ready to like chuck the book out the wall and say, gosh, not enough of love triangle. But it was just like, I really want to see where this goes. And then by the end of the book, you're just like, I have no idea what's happening with this love triangle. And it's just like, I don't know, let's see.
Yeah, I'm gonna backtrack a tiny bit to go back to the world, but I do want to comment on some of the voice and writing style too. So let's go back a little bit to like the different reflections and stuff. I do want to make a little side comment though about Jason and the void and the verity and that kind of stuff. Oh yes, that's so cool. Hey, that's the world. Well, let's talk about the reflections in just one sec. I just want to finish this little side note that I wrote here so I don't forget. So the talk about like evil and good and I just thought it was neat how like when we were talking about Jason, how he was able to contain the void within himself, and now that the verity wasn't there, to keep him accountable. And so like there's a talk about accountability and how important it is in our life. And then also just how he still didn't have complete control of it. And I think that was interesting because I like how this brought up like how we have a choice to do good or evil, and that it's evident near the end of the book with Kai and Joshua. And I'm assuming that's where we're going to kind of get thrown into the next book. But it's just a really good concept and a very good topic because, yeah, you do have a choice. And I love how you brought that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, and then let's get into reflections and world building. Let's see that map again, Angela.
I was like,
it's so beautiful.
So I was like, that's a sweet, well done map. And I liked how it's like New York, and then it's like the fantasy version of New York. I thought that was so cool. But at the same time, you still have those essences of New York in the reflection, or like of our world in the reflection. I'm sure it's like.
So yeah, I wanted to ask. Let's get some clarification, Sarah. So the reflections, are these separate universes or simply another layer to our world? I know how Eliana gets to be a mirror, but like how, which is kind of cool with the reflections wording and stuff like that. But how is it? Like, is it separate? Is it the same? Or just layered? Or what's your take?
I see them as separate but connected. So even though, you know, the second reflection is a reflection of New York, it's much bigger and much grander. And, you know, we're going to explore some of the other reflections in the next two books and just kind of see how some of our different legends play into that. And I'm really excited to explore those things, but they're all connected and they're all kind of in a loop, and they all connect back to each other. So they are definitely separate, but still connected. If that explains, if that answers your question.
How is it for you, Angela? Did it clarify it a bit?
Yeah, like so it's not like just New York has these reflections, but like the whole world. Mm-mm. You know, like there could be a reflection of Winnipeg, Manitoba, but that probably wouldn't be as exciting.
Canada.
I used to live in Winnipeg. I can make fun of it.
But I thought that was really neat, and I love the wording reflection because we are looking at the idea of our own image and that kind of stuff. So I love the wording on that, Sarah. I just think it was so cool. Yeah, anything behind it that you want to tell us, like how you came about this, what inspired you to do reflections?
Well, I absolutely love, urban fantasies in which we find that there are portals to other universes or kind of other universes inside the worlds. Like we have the Harry Potter series where you have wizards living among muggles, and then you have the Mortal Instruments where you have kind of this whole underworld going on that only certain people know about. And so I really like that aspect as to there's more than meets the eye. And so then again with the whole self-image mirror, I just kind of wanted to connect everything together. So that's where the reflections come from. Eliana is a mirror. She can't stand her own reflection. It just kind of ties all of that together. So
it does tie it up nicely. Okay, let's get into creating your writing style and your voice and things like that. Like we've already talked about too, is some of the pop culture that was mixed in there.
That's great.
Yeah, it really spoke to who you are as a person and stuff. I find it was some of it, like, because I don't watch a lot of TV or are in the pop culture as much as some others. Some of it was a bit I got lost in because I didn't know it. But because the writing style was so good, I didn't actually need it to envision where we were. But it gave a good reference to our own world that was very unique to your style, your writing style. So I thought that was cool. What else did you think, Angela?
There's so many little things. Like, okay, so there's a moment, I guess this is again one of my favorite quotes. I found it. I'm surprised I found it. Like I tried to mark stuff, but I guess I didn't.
Good work.
But I found it. So, and it's a pop culture reference that I totally got, and I laughed out loud at this, but it's Hearts Beat Fast, Christina Perri Only Knew. Yay. And I burst out laughing. That's like the whole Twilight wedding song, and I love that song. I'm not a Twilight fan or a Twilight fan at all, but that song I adore, and I actually didn't know it was the Twilight wedding song until like I watched the music video, and I'm like, why are Bella and Edward in this music video? And I'm like, oh, okay. But like there's little moments like that, and then when like the chapter titles for Act 3, and then after Casey mentioned there was more, so I went back and I'm trying to find like all these little like Sara Ella Easter egg kind of things throughout the book. And then, just talking about Kai as well, you almost had that Beauty and the Beast element to it, because Kai wasn't physically perfect, because Kai, like the first thing Elle notices about him is his acne. And I keep forgetting about that. When I read young adult fiction, everybody's always so flawless and so beautiful and perfect. And I kept forgetting that he had that blemish and had that flaw until like there was a moment where she was like in my favorite fairy tale where the princess kisses the beast and he turns into like a prince. And I'm like, well, she would incorporate Beauty and the Beast in here. And then you kind of remember that she was really falling for Kai as a person as well. And that's kind of the camp I'm sitting in. I'm still Team Kai. I'm kind of sitting in that camp. Normally I just let the canon go, and whoever the girl ends up with, I live with. But there's been a couple of books like the Anomaly trilogy, and there's been a few books where I was like, wish she would have ended up with the other guy. And this book, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit in Team Kai for a bit, because I really liked him, and I liked that it had that Beauty and the Beast element to it.
So Sarah, how was creating your writing and the style and voice, like, how was that as a debut novel? How was that as you're growing and writing the new book? How are you doing with that? Like, is it such a learning curve, or is it something that just comes naturally to you? I guess let the readers and viewers know what your thoughts are on that.
I feel like, especially for newbie authors who are told so much, like, you need to have a strong voice, and it's so hard to define that. Like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. And, I feel like definitely reading so much in the genre that I wanted to write in kind of helped me figure out what kind of voice I wanted to have. And I particularly love Tahar Mafi, the author of the Shatter Me series, because when I read her books, and she has so many fragments, and I was like, oh, you can actually like you can write in fragments. We speak in fragments all the time, but it's not correct grammar. But we speak that way all the time in natural language. And so as I was writing and kind of trying to find my voice and kind of trying to find my groove, it wasn't until that I finally was just like, you know what, I'm just going to write the way I want it and I'll edit it later, that I started to kind of find that voice and realize, like, I can write fragments, and I do write in long pauses, a lot of pauses. Because that's kind of how my brain works. My brain kind of works in a lot of periods. So I don't know if it was something that just came naturally or if something I had to work at finding, because I do know through the editing process there were certain sentences that my editor was like, okay, there's way too many fragments here and it's breaking up the flow of the scene. And so I had to kind of learn how to balance that. When is this really short sentence going to be more powerful, and when do I need to have it flow a little bit better with a little bit better grammar? So that was something that I had to find a balance with, and it's definitely something that kind of comes out in the editing process, because the first draft, and you know this, Melanie, because you're a writer, is always just kind of, please don't anybody ever read this because it is not worthy of even my trash can.
Well, it might be worthier than your trash can, but yeah, you're very nervous about, I think I went through my own personal book before I even put it to the editors, like 6 or 7 times. And you still don't think it's good enough to even give to the editor, and you're just really scared. But I'm so glad you did, Sara. And then we get this beautiful book, and I thought it was awesome. Like even those short, actually, I prefer that because then it's just point form. You move in the scene quicker, but you understand, like, you do describe things very well, and so it's not like you have these short sentences that don't make any sense, and then you skip on to something else, and you're just like, okay, what just happened? I don't know what just happened here, and now we're in this short sentence somewhere. I don't know. But you describe things really well. It doesn't jump too fast and things, and you really do get a sense of, like, your personality in the writing. Like, I definitely, maybe because Angela, we both have seen her on her videos and we know her character online. I don't know, but definitely I could feel you, Sara, all throughout these pages, and I was like, yo, this is totally Sara. That's Sara.
Well, that's like with the fragments and stuff too. I found a lot of the times you use them was in regular conversation flow, and like you said, that's how we talk every day. So that actually made a lot of the conversations flow in my brain a lot naturally, and even like that quote that heart beats fast, Christina Perry, if you only knew. Like, the reason that stuck out to me so much, each word heart beats fast was a period, was like short little sentences put together, and that's kind of the way my head works as well when I have my own, like, talking to myself head like she did. So it really flowed really well, and I really like that. And a comment I noticed here, Nadine says she loved it because she felt like she learned more about pop culture that she wasn't familiar with as well.
Oh,
so.
Yay.
Yeah, there you go. Here's a little sentence here near the end, and it goes, I glance at Kai, smile. For the first time in 2 weeks, I feel safe, protected, not alone. So, I mean, like, those are short, but, like, you really understand, you get it. It's not like you don't understand, and it's very impactful. So sometimes they're very just, like, it's straight to the point, gets you in the heart, just gets you, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I going to say? Okay, quickly, before we get into the faith elements of this book, I guess it's kind of a prelude into the faith elements of this book. One, I had a question online before we did the live show a couple days ago. Is there any magic in this book, Sara, that you intended for? Now, personally, I don't feel like there's any magic in the book, but I did have someone ask me if there was any magic.
I have that question as well on my review of Unblemished.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say to that, Sara?
About is there magic in this book?
Yeah.
I would not consider it magic, no.
Okay, good.
I really, it was never in my mind that this is a book where they have magic powers, because all of everything, their gifts in this fantasy world, everything is meant to be allegory, and all their gifts in this fantasy world, once again, they're not their own. It's not of their own doing. It's not of their own special magical abilities. It all comes from the Verity, and without the Verity, they would not have these special gifts and talents. And we see in Scripture, going into the faith elements, we see these miraculous abilities and things happening. We see a talking donkey. We see healing with hands. We see the parting of the Red Sea, all of which men were used to do. But was it Moses's power that parted the Red Sea? Absolutely not. Right. It was God's power, and so that's kind of where that comes from.
Well, and that kind of was a prelude into, and Angela, you can chime in after this and tell me what you think or any questions that you may have. But I also thought to myself, I'm like, well, I see some allegoric messages in here, and that was the other question I was going to get into, is what allegoric messages are there, and if you can confirm them or whatever, which you just basically did. So that's cool. And I also actually saw that very much too in it. So yeah, Angela.
Good.
I liked it too as a book because I'm a Christian YouTuber who likes to focus on Christian fiction and stuff, but at the same time, you could recommend this to somebody who doesn't generally read Christian fiction, and they would still get a really good story and a really good background, even if you wouldn't catch all the faith elements to it. But having read it with my faith as a Christian, I caught a lot of stuff that really spoke to me, and that, like I said, one of the favorite parts I had was the explanation of the void and the verity. And I loved that you used the word verity to describe it, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think verity is French for truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So I loved that you used verity, and then void is like darkness, separation, emptiness. Like like you said, Jason was just so full of it, and it's almost like being completely apart from the truth, from the light, and being completely separated. And a lot of those elements I caught. And again, like to the question I had on my review on Goodreads for your book was there magic in it? I said, no, there is people with abilities and powers, and it's almost like the majesty and the beauty and the elements of a different world, of a fantastical world, but there wasn't, like you said, magical elements to it. And again, I actually didn't catch the allegory of the callings until you mentioned it. Now I'm thinking about it, like, it's true, like a lot of I did catch though that their gifts were from the Verity, and I liked that their gifts were given to them by the Verity, and that when they came of age, they start to manifest their gifts from the Verity. And I thought that element was really cool. Well, I didn't catch the allegory too, but now that I think about it, it's like, how did I miss that? But the gifts, I really liked when, like I said, when Robin, that whole scene with Robin explaining everything was so cool, because I was catching so much from her and just hearing all of that. And then her dad and her talking about when the gifts and stuff come about. It was just so fascinating, and I caught so much of it. And I really liked how that was all written and in the story and woven in there, and not in your face, distracted from the story, but it really built the story.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, like, since this is your debut novel and stuff like that, it's so cool how you didn't have any like info dumps, like it was really, really nice. It was so good. You can obviously tell you're a reader, and which is so nice. And so let's just kind of wrap this up a little bit. I know we didn't get into the family aspects of the book either, and some of the other things, but there's a lot in this book. Like, I was like, wow, there's so much, but I love it. And we know that a lot of it's a prelude to the next kind of books coming. So let's wrap up with that, Sarah. What are we expecting for book number 2?
No spoilers, but
No spoilers.
Okay, book number 2. Let's see how vague I can be. We definitely explore more of how we each have light and darkness in us. We explore the origins of the void and the verity, and some family relationships, some sister relationships, and kind of Elle coming into her calling and her future, and kind of what that means for her as a character. And then, of course, we're going to continue on with the theme of inner beauty, but also true love and what that looks like.
Awesome. And are you still in the writing process right now?
I just turned in my second round of edits for the manuscript Unraveling, and I'm waiting to hear back on my editor's notes, and then it will go off to line edits, and the book releases on July 11th of next year.
Oh, so far. That ending, girl, like,
I know.
Like, but I love the fact where, I highlighted another quote. I keep finding them now. But, like, she looked in the mirror. This
You
image
highlighted your
I've
book?
never seen. The girl in my reflection is smiling. So when you're ending with her feeling more confident in herself and confident in her beauty and being okay with the fact that her mark stayed, but then the whole what happened to Kai and Joshua and stuff, I like the way that ended. I was like, please tell me that book is coming out early spring and not like summer. And then when you mentioned it on Trina's channel, I was like, darn it.
This ending was actually, I love the way you ended it. I really love the way you ended it. How the verity and the void, and just, yeah. I almost don't want to say it because it's such a spoiler. I really, you have to read it just for the ending, guys. Like, I mean, this is just amazing. The ending is just like, when, I don't even want to say it just because it is such a huge spoiler. But at the end, when they're leaving and he says those words, and you know there's someone hiding something. It's like, oh man. I was heartbroken, and I was like, at the same time, like, I had all the emotions.
That was such a good ending, though, because it didn't leave you on a cliffhanger that, like, you know, like some authors, Melanie, leave you on a massive cliffhanger. I read Melanie's second book, and she has a cliffhanger that I flipped the page expecting it to keep going, but she didn't do that to me. But Sarah, your book wasn't like a cliffhanger where you're like left sitting there wondering what the author has just done to you, but you're so built up and excited for the next book, and it is such a great build up for the next book.
Yeah, it was really like, yeah, you're definitely, it's still a cliffhanger because you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? But you're not like, you know what sort of may happen, but I don't know, Sarah, you're you're good at getting us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let's wrap it up. And I guess, Angela, go ahead and introduce our next book for the live show. And hopefully, Angela, you got it there, because I know you might.
I actually didn't pick it up. I'm waiting for a paycheck first. But I did see, ladies and gentlemen, in stores that the Silent Songbird somehow hit the shelves early in chapters. It's supposed to be released November 8th. Wow, we're not September. Wow. So yes, our November book is The Silent Songbird by Melanie Dickerson. It is the 7th book in the Hagenheim fairy tale retelling series. You guys do have time to catch up on the whole book series. They're fast books. Just go ahead and do it. And I think she has like the 5-book set is on Kindle now for like $1.99 or something super crazy like that. So you can go pick up all 5 of them. So we have that for the November book. I have a review coming up on Monday, so you guys can check that out for more information. Also, our live show, we actually have a date set for you guys this time. Our live show for the Silent Songbird is going to be November 28th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's Monday, November 28th. And we have another special surprise for you guys. We are going to be visited again by another author. Melanie Dickerson is going to be joining us for the live show. You guys can come and chat with Melanie, just like we just did with Sarah. We're going to ask her a lot of questions on maybe just like the whole Hagenheim series, and because I think this is the final book in it, so just like her whole world of those fairy tale retellings. So you guys can come and ask questions and all that. And I'm super excited. I was just floored when both Sarah and Melanie, I think it was like,
I know, we're so lucky.
We actually in a week if you want to come to our live shows, and I think you both said yes that week, and we were just like floored.
Well, it's so cool to have you, Sarah, and it's cool to get your perspective and just clarifications on stuff and just to see what your thoughts were, like your creative thoughts on how you made this amazing book. And we're so glad you did, and that I'm glad that you joined us. This would have been, you know, awesome, but your show, having you here with us is even more awesome. So we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both. This was a blessing to me, and I had so much fun.
We had a lot of fun too, Sarah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
All right,
Bye,
we're
everybody.
done. Bye. Thanks for joining.